Hey, this is going to be a video on my entire Winchester knife collection. This is going to be a long one, so sit down and enjoy, I suppose. Maybe get something to drink. But anyway, we're going to start here at the beginning with my favorite Winchester knife and one of my favorite knives, possibly my favorite pocket knife that I own, and that's this Winchester Moose. This one was made in 1988, I believe. Yeah, let me look here. Yeah, 1988 Winchester Moose here. Of course, you've got your main clip blade here. This one's quite a bit of patina on it from cutting food and all sorts of stuff. Um, yeah, so this is probably my favorite knife, one of my most carried pocket knives. The action on it is really good. It has half stops. It's got this spear blade as well here. It's a long spear blade. Of course, both tang stamped Winchester, um, trademark made in USA or USA. Both blades have half stops. The action on the knife's really good. It's got these beautiful like dark brown jigged bone covers. These ones kind of look more black than brown, but I have a couple other ones that look that really show off the dark brown well. This one just so happens to be dyed fairly dark. You've got a nice shield here that looks like a badge, nickel silver bolsters. Um, a lot of this is going to be the same over all of these knives. Pretty much all of them have nickel silver bolsters and shields and carbon steel blades. But anyway, this one's my favorite Winchester and probably my favorite knife overall. This Winchester 1988 Moose. I just love this knife. This is what I bought when I couldn't get a Great Eastern Cutlery 81 Moose. I bought this, and it has filled that spot really well. So moving on, let's move on to a sad one, and that's this one right here. I have done a video about this, and I think some of you have watched it. It was this Winchester uh, muskrat in this abalone, and somebody informed me that this is actually celluloid, which I didn't even know they still used on pocket knives back in the time that these were made, because this was made in like the 90s. I don't know. Does this blade have the date on it? 95. I can't believe they were still using celluloid in 1995. But apparently these Winchesters that appear to have acrylic or whatever, it's all celluloid, so it gasses out and kind of just ruins the knife. And also any other knives around it. Celluloid's a beautiful handle material, but it ruins the knife over time. But this is this abalone celluloid here, which looks fantastic. You can see there on the shield, a little bit of corrosion. When I got this knife, it was awful. I only paid like $30 for it though, so it wasn't a big deal. But the reason why this is sad is because, as some of you will know that watched the video on it, this one back spring just like snapped. You can see right there, there's a crack in the back spring. So this blade here would just flop open and stuff. So what I did is I just poured a bunch of super glue in there. So that blade doesn't move anymore at all. And the back spring obviously doesn't move or anything. But the blade on this side, still usable, still open and closable. So this is a knife that I may occasionally still try to throw in my pocket. We'll see. It does still have one usable blade. Although in an ideal world, I guess the best thing to do would be to get it re-handled and just have one blade and something else. But then it wouldn't be the same knife. So, yeah. But this is the the Winchester Muscrap, as I'm going to call it. And this was a 95 knife. This is part of the cartridge series, whereas that last one was the Winchester Black Box series. But that's the Winchester Muscrap. Moving on. Let's move on to like this. This is cool. Another Winchester cartridge series knife is this sleeve board whittler here. You can see it's a like sleeve board pattern, and it is a split a split back, yeah, split back whittler. So you can see there's two back springs that then merge down to meet each other, and both of them are the back spring for this main blade here, which is this really rounded spear blade, incredibly rounded. It's a little oddly shaped blade. Um, it would be really good for like carving out the bowl of like a spoon or something. I think it would be really good for. Other than that, I don't really know what kind of carving you're going to do with a blade like this. But it was just such a unique looking knife that I really wanted it. Someone had, bought it. And then it's got these two other like really pointy spear blades here that are extremely thin. That would be way better for whittling than that giant spear blade that's all fat and round and weird. Um, the bone on these is all pretty similar. It's like this weird jigging, and it's got this nice like honey orange yellow type color to it. You got your shield here, 4570. They did a couple different like cartridges for the cartridge series. This one's 4570. And I do believe it's pinned on most of these knives. These Winchester knives were contracted by Blue Ridge Cutlery, Blue something Cutlery, and they were made by Queen. So they're pretty nicely made because this is back when Bill Howard was still at Queen. So all these knives are fairly well made. They were made by Queen back in Queen's heyday. Let's grab this one next. Another Winchester cartridge series here. I've got this Winchester 3030. This is a swing guard. So, as the name might imply, it's got this guard here that guards your hands from slipping onto the blade. Some long clip point blade, a long pull. You can see there on the blade it says Winchester cartridge series. It's kind of hard to show because of the shininess of it. And this is a lock back, so you do have a locking bar here that you got to press up to close the blade. And if you watch while I open it here, see if I can, I'll do it with my left hand. The swing guard is attached to the blade, and it just kind of swings into place when the blade's locked open. Hence why it is called a swing guard. Case makes a version of this. It's called the Cheetah. This one I don't think really has a name. It has a model number. But I'm just going to call it a swing guard because that's what it is. I think this was, 93, 83, something 3. 2003, okay. So this was 2003. So this is getting to the end of Bill Howard's tenure at Queen. But this is a nice knife. Most of these I got on eBay. I don't remember how much I paid for all of them, obviously. This one didn't come with a box, which wasn't the end of the world or anything because my knives are tools generally. Although the only one of these that I've really carried a whole lot is the 88 Moose. So moving on, let's do our first sunfish. I've got several of these sunfish knives. So this is probably the most usable sunfish, I'm going to call it. Got this big rifle shield here of this lever action rifle. I'm going to call it a Winchester 94, even if that's not what it is, but that's what I'm going to call it. Sunfish or elephant's toenail. You've got a really small little nail nick there that's kind of hard to get your nail into, and a little long pull. You open it, blade snaps open really well. It's this, fairly fat, well, really fat spear point blade. And this is a knife that fills your whole hand. And these sunfish or elephant toenail knives were made for back in the day. You were cutting rope, so you would like hit the back of the blade with like a mallet or something to go through a piece of rope, and that was what these were used for, and that's why they're so like big and chunky, and they fit in your hand really well. And then it's a good knife for that. This is the only one of these I think that actually has an openable secondary blade, because a lot of these, first of all, the secondary blade is so thin that like when you try to close it, it feels like it's going to cut you. So that's fun. But it's openable. I just said it was openable, and then I did that to my my thumbnail, so that's interesting. But anyway, same like jig bone covers here, just slightly darker orange, and it's got a rifle instead of the cartridge head. So nice knife. I don't think I've really ever taken this one out of the box to carry it or anything, but I do like it quite a bit. There are some of these that I just leave in the box just to have because they're cool. But that's that knife. What year was this? I didn't look. Try not to hurt myself again. Not hurt myself, but try not to pull my fingernail off again. What year was this? Does it say 98? I think this is 1998. So this was the 98 Sunfish, is what I'm going to call that. Okay, moving on. Let's do another black box knife. This is the Sow Belly Stockman Winchester black box knife. From what I understand, I think these black box knives, the handles were sourced from like an old cutlery factory. I don't remember which one, but I believe these jigged bone covers were sourced from somewhere. Like I guess they were in slabs or something, and then just cut to fit. But they're over 100 years old or something like that. There's a story behind these black box knives. I just don't remember it entirely, but I believe part of the story is that these covers were sourced from like an old cutlery factory. But anyway, this is the Sow Belly Stockman. You can see it's got the same kind of shield as my moose here, just smaller. But the Sow Belly Stockman has your traditional Stockman blades. Got a clip blade. It says Winchester trademark on it there. A sheep's foot blade. And a spay blade. Spay blade's at a really harsh angle there because this is a sow belly. So, it's at an interesting angle. This knife wasn't the best fit and finish knife. It did have quite a bit of blade play. So I did have to try to fix that. You can see the pin there sticking out because I'm OCD about blade play. So I fixed the blade play, but the action on close anyway isn't the like best, and then on the sheep's foot on the open end close isn't great. But other than that, pretty decent little knife. No big issues or anything. I think this one does have a crack back here. I did already fill it with some super glue, it looks like. Did have a crack right here running from the pin to the liner there. But I went ahead and put some super glue in it because I always like to be careful with these cracks because I don't want them to get any bigger or have chips come off of the bone or anything. So I always do try to, put super glue in any cracks that I see so that they don't get any worse. But this is the Winchester Sow Belly Stockman, part of the Black Box series, and this was the 89 Black Box knife, which is the year after my moose. So that's interesting. Yeah, cool little knife. This one's a little bit easier to see the dark brown than my moose is. You can see it there a little bit, maybe. But yeah, that's the Sow Belly Stockman. Okay, let's move on to this other one. Now, this is a black box knife, but the box looks different. I do have the top of the box here. Most of them are red, like this. But then there's this one, which is a yellow writing box. And then the handles are yellow. It's just a smooth yellow bone. And this one is just another version of my moose. Because I liked the knife so much. You can see there it's made the same year, 88. I do cover this one in oil, I believe. Yes, it is covered in oil. Good. But this is just a different version of my moose. Here, if you look at them, put them side to side here. So if you look at them, it's the same knife. This one's just in smooth yellow bone covers. I do prefer my jig bone one, but I figured since I liked my moose so much, I would get a second one to have as backup in case anything ever happens to my primary Winchester moose. So this one just stays in the box. I cover it in oil and everything, so it stays in good shape. And it's just sitting in the knife drawer waiting for the day when, for whatever reason, my other moose isn't ready to go. And then this one will replace it. Hopefully that day will never come, but just in case it does, I have this knife. So that's why I have this one. Same knife, just different handle material. Um, but it's cool that they did this, in my opinion. And the yellow ones might be more rare. I have no idea. I don't care about rarity. Like, literally, the whole reason I buy pocket knives is because I think they're cool and I like to throw them in my pocket and everything. Okay, I got two more sunfish style knives, so I'll just go to the next one of them. Another one with this rifle shield here, and another sunfish, elephant toenail, whatever you want to call it. This one's the one that I've carried the most. It's got this, once again, spear blade. This one's a little bit less fat than the other one. Handles are a little bit less fat. In fact, I think it's maybe a little longer. They're about the same length. Okay. Just different shapes. This one's more of like it's an interesting spear shape because it almost looks like it's going into like a tanto almost. Um, but very interesting blade shape. This one did have quite a considerable amount of blade play, as you might be able to tell by the hammer marks on the bolster there, because like I said, I am OCD about blade play, and I just never bothered to try to like get those marks out of the bolster because I didn't care. Because this is a knife that I do regularly. Well, not regularly, but this is a knife that does end up in my pocket. I'm not going to try to open that secondary blade there. This one does have a spot on the back of it, if I remember correctly. Yeah, right there. Little spot of corrosion on the blade there. You can see the blades rub. Um, all of these sunfish knives do share one back spring, so they do tend to rub a little bit. That's not unheard of with knives that have two blades sharing one back spring, especially knives with such large blades like this. Certainly not uncommon. This one's a slightly different jigging pattern than like the sleeve board whittler here. See, it's more of like a traditional jigging, like closer to like cases jigging. And if I compare it to this other one here, well, this one's jigging is like that too, I guess. I just didn't notice. Well, the back side's not, but the front side is. I like this front side jigging on this knife a lot. But this has been my most carried sunfish knife. I don't typically carry these that often, but this is the one that goes in my like box of knives that like I have a cigar box that I fill with knives that I regularly carry, and this one's in there because it does end up in my pocket occasionally. Um, whenever I'm feeling like carrying a sunfish knife, I'll throw this one in my pocket. Um, but anyway, just cool pattern and everything. Huge knife, which is also fun in a lot of ways. We'll move on to another black box knife. This is a regular Stockman. I think a lot of companies refer to this as a large Stockman or maybe even a medium. It might be a medium Stockman. I don't know. Let me get the little ruler here and we'll see how big it is. So I can just tell you how big it is. All right, so it's about what 3 3/4 inch handle, something like that. 3.5, maybe 3.5 inches. I'm gonna say slightly over 3.5 inch handle. Slightly over 3.5 inches closed. It is a Stockman. Um, so it's got three blades. It's got a clip blade here. You got your pretty standard Stockman style clip blade. It says Winchester on it. This was the knife for 87, so the year before my moose. Got on both sides of that. Wow. Winchester trademark, of course, the Winchester tang stamp there. Winchester trademark, made in USA. Same shield as my moose and the sow belly. You got your clip blade there. You got a sheep's foot blade. And then you've got a spade blade. Ooh, this is the one. That's right. this is the one that I have to, because the spade blade and the sheep's foot blade, I think, have a lot of contact with each other. So I actually need to open the sheep's foot before I can open the spade blade. Is that right? No, I can get it open without that. Okay, cool. That might be another knife I'm thinking of. There certainly is a Stockman I have that's like that. But this is just a nice little Stockman. I don't really carry it because um, I don't really carry Stockmans all that often, if I'm honest. I have quite a few of them, but I don't really carry them all that often. And when I do, typically I'm carrying the Great Eastern Cutlery Dixie Stockman. But this is a nice little Stockman knife, well put together and everything. Like I said, these were made by Queen back when Bill Howard was still at Queen. Of course, Bill Howard is the founder of Great Eastern Cutlery, and of course, he's still making great knives to this day. So these old Winchester knives made by Queen are pretty great. Um, they're well done and everything. Very, very good looking handles on these black box knives. But yeah, that's the apparently 1987 Winchester black box knife. This Stockman here. Moving on. I've got three more knives, guys. Moving on. We'll go with this one, which is the Winchester cartridge knife for 1994, which is my birth year. I have a couple of birth year knives. I have this one. I have Remington bullet knives that were made in 94, which is the big camp knife. I've done a video on that. But this is another moose. This is the moose made in 94. It has no half stops. It's got this big, well, interesting shaped clip blade. I really like the shape of this clip blade. It would be cool if they did like a Stockman or something with that shaped clip blade. In fact, where's my sow belly? So I think it might almost be kind of similar shaped here. It's similar, but I really like the shape of this clip blade. I just haven't carried this knife a whole lot because I have my 88 Moose. If I'm going to carry a Moose, I carry that one typically. But fairly thin clip blade, really good point on it. So these match strike nail nicks, which I'm not necessarily a huge fan of. Um, but I guess some people probably are. And it's got this big spay blade that I actually like the shape of this spay blade because it's not as useless. Well, I don't want to say useless, but it's not as like spay bladey as like the spay blade on this. So I guess they're pretty similar. Okay. Well, a lot of spay blades are more like they're less usable, like than this. Whereas this is kind of almost more of like a drop point type of blade almost. And it's a big, big old spay blade, very pointy, so it is useful in that way. But yeah, this is just a cigar frame moose pattern knife. What I mean when I say cigar frame is this like rounded equal end frame here is called like a cigar. And then the pattern is the moose because it's got two blades on each end. One of them's a clip point and the other one's a spay blade. Although typically I think a moose is a spear point and a clip blade, but in this case they're using a spay blade instead of a spear point. I'm not gonna try to like say this isn't a moose because it's not a spear blade or anything. Because it is a moose, there are quite a few mooses that put a spay blade on the other end, like Case does. I have a Remington that does as well. Um, that's just the way it is. It's still a moose knife as far as I'm concerned. But this is the 1994 Winchester cigar moose knife. Um, in these, once again, these pretty cool looking, like orangish jigged bone handle covers here. Yeah, just a well-made knife, obviously, like these all pretty much are. But that was the one made in 1994, which was the year I was born. Um, the last sunfish knife. This one's the biggest one, and this one is bigger compared to I thought it was bigger. It's bigger. Come on. Has to be bigger. Okay, it is bigger. I was just saying, it has to be bigger. I think it's actually noticeably bigger compared to this one. It is. Um, so this one's the biggest one. You got your Winchester cartridge on it there. Still one back spring. The blade on this one is this really huge spear blade here. And if you compare this to like my most carried one here, the blade is quite a bit more sizable and everything. Um, yeah, so biggest sunfish knife, biggest handle, really large blade and everything. This one was 95, I think. They made a few knives every year. So me saying the year really isn't that important, but I think I can just about get the secondary blade open on this one, almost. Sorry, table. Okay, so that's a secondary blade. All of these like Winchester's spear blades are like interesting because they're almost like a tanto, which is cool. This one's gonna, yeah. See, these secondary blades are so thin and they're like beveled or not beveled, but swedged. Swedged. That's what it's called. So they're really pointy, so they feel like they're gonna cut you when you're trying to close them. Um, so that's kind of inconvenient. But this is um, a huge knife, and it's very cool and everything. Um, but these sunfish knives are a bit desirable these days. It seems like people really like to have them. And I also like to have them. That's why I have three of them. And I have more sunfish, but that's my three Winchester ones. So on to the last knife here. And you will see once again, it is a black box knife. You can see the same shield there. Same handle material pretty much. This one is definitely more brown than my other ones are. You can really see the brown in this one. Of course, I say you can really see the brown. You can only really see the brown in a couple of spots. But this is brown bone. It's not black. It's supposed to be brown. But I believe they call this one the torpedo jack. And it is it's a jackknife. It's an interesting, like almost like a Eureka jack combined with like a bullet end jack, if you're familiar with Great Eastern Cutlery. And you've got your main blade, which is a spear blade. Does have half stops. Spear blade here. This is Winchester trademark on it. Your normal Winchester tank stamp. Does have these two scratches up here near the tip of the blade, which I don't know what they're from, but they're pretty good in the blade there. But they were there when I got it. This knife, like the swing guard, didn't come with a box. So it may have been carried and stuff before, not a big deal. Does look like it has some blade wrap there, which is interesting. Yeah, it's got some blade wrap or something. So I guess maybe it's hitting on the back spring. Should be interesting because this isn't really that weird of a blade shape to develop blade wrap. But anyway, get your main spear blade there. I don't know. I didn't hear it hit, so I don't know. And then you got a little pen blade here. Both of them have half stops and everything. I think this one's one of the more desirable Winchester knives just because it's about the size you want for like a normal everyday pocket knife. And it's such a like classic shape and everything. And it just feels good in your hand. So I think this one's a fairly popular one. Right up there with like the coffin jack, which I don't have one of. I probably could get one of, but I'm not that like concerned with it. But we'll look at the size of this closed here. Point out the fact that it's about the same size as a lot of like really popular like slip joint knives where it's like 3.5 inches. Yeah, pretty much right on the dot, 3.5 inches closed. So that's about your like perfect like pocket knife size for a lot of these like traditional pocket knives is like 3.5 to like 4. In that range there is like pretty much your perfect like pocket knife size. But anyway, that is my entire Winchester knife collection as of now. Will it grow? Probably, because I love these knives. I did have a stock, not a stock, but I did have a gun stock. They did make a small black box gun stock. Did have one of them. I didn't realize how small it was until I got it. Never ended up carrying it or anything, so I gave it to my girlfriend because she likes smaller pocket knives because they're less, like, conspicuous or whatever. Um, and just better to carry and everything. They're not so noticeable as these larger knives are. But the gun stock wasn't really for me because it was fairly small. So that has become my girlfriend's knife. Um, and the rest of these are all of my Winchester collection. Um, Very beautiful knives of all different shapes and sizes and colors, and all sorts of awesome cutlery here in front of me. I do really love these Winchester knives. I think they're an awesome. I don't want to say an investment because I'm not. I'm not that guy. But they're an awesome piece of, like, cutlery history as far as I'm concerned. These were made by Queen when Queen was doing great things. So they're made fairly well. They're still not incredibly expensive when compared to, like, Great Eastern Cutlery. A lot of these you can get around $100, or you can get for around $100 on, like, eBay and stuff. And I'm sure you get them cheaper prices from maybe some, like, forums or places like that. Keep in mind, sunfish knives you're probably going to pay a little bit more for because they're more desirable. A lot of people really like the sunfish and elephant toenails and stuff. Um, but this is just a really great example of, well-made cutlery that you can still get. That's not an insane price. And there were enough of them made that they're fairly easy to get when compared to something like Great Eastern Cutlery, which, does smaller runs. Their knives increase in value. They pretty much double in value the day after they release, because, you'll see them immediately, and then somebody will put one up on eBay for twice the amount of money they paid for it. Now, this year, as of now, 2023, it's March 2023 right now. So as of right now, people aren't paying the double, triple Great Eastern Cutlery price that they were. So the secondary prices on Great Eastern Cutlery has gone down a little bit, but these Winchester knives are still more affordable. And like I said, there's more of them, so they're easier to find and everything. Um, and yeah, they're just well made, made by Queen, uh, and they're a great example of American cutlery. But anyway, I'm gonna stop talking about it. This has been my entire Winchester knife collection. I will see you guys in the next video, and I hope you have a good day.